Hello, good afternoon, or good morning, good evening, depending on your time zone. So let's get started with the 101 webinar, but maybe first let's do the sound check. Is everyone able to hear me? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Otherwise, you can also have a surprised reaction that you see someone's mouth is moving, but without making any noise. Okay, sound is great. Let's make it a great webinar. So it will take about 1 hour to discuss the basics of Baserow and to get started with the real basics. What is Baserow? Well, Baserow it's a platform where you can build both databases and applications without coding. And we like to say that we have the power of a full database with the ease of use of a spreadsheet. So let's get started here by checking some relational database principles. And let's compare it with a spreadsheet. So in a spreadsheet, you have a document, and in a database, well, you have your database. In a spreadsheet, you have multiple worksheets, where in a database, you have multiple tables. And here comes a major difference. The worksheets in a spreadsheet are mostly not related to each other. It's very hard to link them. And especially if you have multiple spreadsheet documents all over your organization, it's really hard to link them into a centralized place. And that's a major difference where in a database, you have relations between tables that ensure your data integrity, which means if you have a table with customers and you make a change to the address or the email or phone number of a customer, that those changes will be reflected everywhere in the database. And also there are field types that allow you to specify the type of data. For example, I want to enter an email here. This must be a number. This must be a piece of text, and so on. Some terminology inside Baserow. So at the top, we have a workspace, and the workspace can be a collection of databases. Inside the database, you have a collection of tables, and a table is divided into rows and columns. So here I have a table. It's a table with employee information. I have multiple fields or columns, and those are the attributes. I also have multiple records or rows, and that's one instance. For example, Ali Acker is one employee. My most left field, it's not really the primary key. I prefer to call it the primary field. It's the field that is used to identify the record in my database. And here I have a field job, and it has a plug symbol, which means it's a relation. It's related to another table. Also, a quick word about organizing your data, and then we will dive straight into Baserow. Because a lot of users tell us, okay, I understand the tool, but I always have problems to get started modeling my database. Well, I want you to offer 3 easy steps for it, just to get you started. And actually, the thing is, you write down on a piece of paper or in a notebook or something, or on your computer, you write down in a couple of sentences, this is what I want my application to do. For example, this is what I'm going to use in the demo. I want to build an application to manage my projects. I divide them into multiple tasks and assign them to staff members. And then I start with selecting the nouns in this description. Well, I have application, but okay, that's what I want to build. I want to manage projects, divide into tasks, assign them to staff members. So I identified 3 tables here: projects, tasks, and staff members. And then in my second step, I'm thinking about the fields, the attributes, what is related to a project. Well, it can have a name, a description, a budget, start date, and so on. For a task, also, a task has a deadline, it's related to a project, it's executed by a staff member, I have certain priorities, and so on. And a staff member has a name, email, and so on. Then in your third step, we're going to check relations. And a relation is mostly an attribute that is also a table. For example, a project, one of the attributes is a task, or are the tasks of the project. Well, I have a table with the same name, so this will probably be a linked field. Also in my task table, I have a staff member and I have a table staff here. So this will be a relation. So three easy steps that can help you getting started with building your own databases. But for now, let's switch to Baserow and let's start or get start building here. So what I'm going to build is from scratch a very easy, simple database for task management. I have my workspace here. It's my 101 webinar workspace. I have a lot of workspaces. Let's use this one. It's still blank, so let's create a new database inside it. And I can start from scratch, what I'm going to do today, or I can also import from Airtable. So if you want to move from Airtable to Baserow, you can share your Airtable base and import it into Baserow. But let's start from scratch here, and it's going to be about task management. So I have now one database. My database has a single table with three fields: name, notes, and active. I'm going to rename my table. So each time I want to do an action, it's just clicking the three dots here, click rename, and I'm going to name my table tasks. And each task will have a name. So this is my primary field. So what are the tasks that I have to do this week? Well, I have to do this webinar 101. Let's say I also have a webinar 102. I also need to create a demo for two-way sync. I also have some custom code work. And I need to do a webinar about automations. So 5 tasks in my name field. And name is the primary field, but in November, I'm going to do this webinar again. So if I say webinar 101, that's not a problem. I can have multiple times the same value. And that's not always my desired behavior. So let's remove this. Let's go to edit field. And here in the advanced tab, it's a feature we released a couple of months ago. We can set constraints. I'm going to add a constraint here and say, okay, this field must be unique, including empty. So I cannot have more than one empty field. So I'm going to save it. And if I say now a webinar 101, it returns an error message. Sorry, you're violating the constraints. There can be no tasks with twice the same name. So I'm going to say this is for October. And this webinar 101 is for November. And I have a unique name. Let's create some other fields. So nodes can be deleted. Also active, I'm going to delete it here. And I'm going to create a number field. So in Baserow, we have a lot of data types: number, rating, booleans. Yeah, really a lot of them. So let's create a number field, calling it workload. It can have 2 decimals, and I want to express it in hours. And I'm not going to allow negative values. I can set the default, but that's not necessary here. So yeah, the workload, the amount of time I think to spend about it, let's say 3 hours, 2.4 hours, 5.4 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours, and 2.3 hours. This is my workload, and I also gonna set a deadline. So date is also a type I can use. I can set a format: European, US, or ISO. Let's use the ISO format for the moment. So deadline, yeah, this one was yesterday. Let's set it somewhere next week, later this week, far more in the future, also somewhere in the future, and we can do this for next year. So we have a deadline, and I also want to have a status. I can do it in a text field, but a more appropriate field type is my single select. And single select can help multiple options. For example, to do, in progress, or it can be complete. And I can associate a color with it. So green, yellow, and blue. And I can also set the default option here. Let's say to do. This means if I create a new task, it will set default to do. Next field, and this is a major benefit over using spreadsheets. It is a file field, so I'm able to store entire files inside my database. So I'm adding a file field by calling this assets. For example, custom code work, it's for a customer. I'm going to upload the contract as a PDF document. And let's say for this two-way sync demo, I need a couple of images. So I have images over here. I'm going to select them all and I'm going to upload all the images. So those assets are now stored inside my database. And my final field for the moment is a last modified field. So let's include the time here in ISO format. And you can see each time the field has been modified. So I have uploaded files. Those are modified 2 minutes after the others. So yeah, let's say in 5 minutes we have created a table for task management. Let's add a second table. And also as a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I will try to answer them as soon as possible. So let's create a second table, but this time I'm not going to start from scratch. I'm going to import a CSV file. So new table, import a CSV file, and I'm going to select information about my staff members. So if you have data in any other source, you can already export it as a CSV and import it into Baserow. After importing, I have my 24 employees. They all have a name, the email. So it's imported now all as text fields, but email I can say, okay, this is an email field. And now I'm obligated to have an email address here. So if I remove this one and I say demo, it says this is invalid. Demo@demo.com will work perfectly. I can do the same for a phone number, but phone numbers don't have a real strict pattern. So I can actually do any combination of characters. It will always work. The benefit is if I click on it, it will try to open FaceTime or another phone app and dial the actual number. So I have staff members, I have tasks. Now the big trick. So what differentiates a database from spreadsheets is we are going to link them together. In my task table, I'm going to add a new field. Maybe rename this first to status. And next to the status, to the right, I'm going to set an assignee. And the assignee will be picked from my staff table. So it will be a link to table field. So you have the plug where you really connect one table with another. I only have two tables, so I'm going to connect with staff. I want to create a field in my staff table also. I'm going to demonstrate it in a second. But I don't want to allow multiple relationships because one task, one assignee. If you want to assign multiple people, perfect. It's possible if you check this, but I'm not going to do it. So let's assign a couple of people here. Let's assign Bran. I can also search. So I want to assign Nora. Let's see where Nora is. Okay, Nora is here. And I can also use shortcuts just like in Excel. So Command C, Command V, I can assign Nora to a lot of tasks. I can also create a new employee. So here on the plus sign, I get a model here and I'm going to assign myself, or I'm going to create myself as an employee, and I'm assigned to the custom work task. So I create myself, and immediately I'm assigned. I'm also going to assign myself to the last task. So I did the assignees. Let's go to the staff table, and you notice here that this field wasn't there before. I have my task field, so it automatically created the field in the other table where I see all the tasks assigned to me. And now I can continue based on that linked field. For example, I want to count the number of tasks. So I have the count field based on my task table. Now I see Bran has one task, Nora has three tasks, and I have two tasks. Also, I can do lookup fields. So if I want to have additional information, I can look up that information. For example, in my task table, I have my assignee here, but I want to immediately see the email of the assignee. So let's add another field, assignee email, and this will be a lookup field. I'm looking up a field from my linked field. So from my assignee field, those are all the fields in my staff table. I want to see the email. And now it gets the email based on the assignee. If I remove the assignee, it removes the email. Yep. So this is a lookup field. One more field type I want to show are rollup fields where I can make calculations. So I have 6 tasks here. Each task has a certain workload, has an assignee. If I have a look here, I see that Nora has a task of 2.4, 5.4, which makes 7.8 plus 10, 17.8 hours of work. I want to see this in the staff table, and that's possible with the rollup field. So here I see that she has 3 tasks, but what is the workload of those 3 tasks? I do this with a rollup field. I'm going to call it scheduled workload, task table, my workload field, and the rollup function I want to use is the sum function. So I'm going to sum up all the values. I also can take the average, or I can take the minimum, maximum, I can count them, but I'm going to take the sum. So here you see Nora, 17.8 hours of work, 9.3 to myself, and Bran has 3 hours. All the others are set to 0. Okay, so that's in a nutshell, working with linked tables. What we covered was I have a task table, I have a staff members table, I can link staff members to a task, and I can do lookup fields and rollup fields to do calculations on it. For the next step, I want to focus on views. So we have 2 tables, tasks and staff, but I want to have multiple views. For example, here for my, let's start with the task. For my task table, I want to rename this view and say, okay, I have all tasks. That's a view. And I want to create a second view. And I'm going to create a grid view, so one of the same type. There are 2 types here. I can do a collaborative view or I can do a personal one. So let's start with a collaborative one and say I want to see all tasks grouped by my assignee. So I have exactly the same database, but I'm going to do a group. I pick assignee, and now it's grouped by the assignee. So now I have 2 views on my table, just all the tasks grouped by assignee. And for each view, I can show which fields I want to see. So for example, here, I don't want to see the assignee or the email anymore. Actually, I also don't want to see the assets. And now I have a view with a limited number of fields, and this is a view showing all my fields. I also can start filtering. So let's duplicate this view. And I'm going to rename it and saying tasks with high workload. And let's assume high workload is everything above 5 hours. So I'm going to set a filter where workload is higher than 5. So now I only have 3 tasks visible here, but they are not removed from my table. I have all tasks where I see them all, and I have tasks with a high workload where I only see those with more than 5 hours. I can also create a personal view. So let's create a personal one and call it My Tasks, where I do a simple filter and say, okay, only show the task where the assignee has my name. So let's search for my name. And now I only see tasks assigned to me, but I'm the only one. It's a personal view. If I authenticate with another user, that user will not see this view. Other things I can do with views is, of course, sort them. So if I say for myself, I want to sort it on the date, and I want the earliest date on top, that I know, okay, this is the first deadline, then I can add the sorting. I can also do colors. So if I go to all tasks and I'm going to add a color for the background based on conditions, sorry, and I want to have a slightly red background for tasks where the deadline or date, yeah, should be deadline. Let's rename it. Just to be clear, this is a deadline. So if my deadline is on or before today, and my status is not completed or not complete, well, in that case, so deadline was yesterday, status is still set to do, I immediately have a red line here. If I say, okay, this one is complete, the red line is removed. So the same for here. If I say this one is in progress and the deadline is today, it shows the red border because, okay, deadline is today, it's still in progress, so I have to keep attention on it. So this allows you to mark records inside your grid view. You can also have other view types. So for the moment, we only focused on the grid. Let's add some other types, but first let's add a field here on the left, and I'm going to call this start date. So it's also a date field, and it indicates when I should start working on my task. I'm just going to copy paste the deadline, and now I'm going to move it a couple of days in front. Okay, so now I have a start and an end date, and the reason I wanted to have the start date is because we're going to do formulas on it in a couple of moments, but also to show the timeline view. So I can create a timeline, and I set a start date, I set a deadline or an end date. I create my view, and here you have a nice overview for the month, for the week, for the entire year that shows where your projects are scheduled or where your tasks are scheduled. So let's go back to today. I can also add colors to it. So I can say the background color. It's the single select, pick the status color. So now I can see, okay, what is completed, what is in progress, what is still scheduled. Very nice overview. Another one is the Kanban view. And a Kanban just stacks my item based on a single field. So I have to do in progress complete. If I say this one, the webinar, it's also in progress, it will actually update the status. So if I have my tasks here, I see that I have two in progress. And the same goes for my timeline. If I say the two-way sync demo, the deadline is not on the 16th, but a week later, you will actually see that it extended the bar. So it makes it much longer. Another one is the calendar view. So I want to have a calendar with all my deadlines. The same here, I can say, okay, my left border color is the status, or the background color, free to choose whatever you want. With labels, I can say which fields are shown. So let's say the name and the assignee are shown. But the nice thing about the calendar view is you can share it. Well, actually, you can share any view and create a private link. But the calendar view has something special. You can sync it to an, you can sync it to an ICS file. and you can link your Outlook or any other calendar app with that ICS file. So every time you update something in your Baserow database, it is synced with your Outlook. Very nice feature. But also the other views. So let's create one more, duplicate it here. And I want to have open tasks, so tasks that are not completed. Adding a filter, status is not complete. And I share this view. Well, I create my private link. And now I have publicly shared my view. Thus, anyone with this link is able to access the view, but you can only see the data. It's not possible to edit the data. And the final view I want to show you is the form view, very nice for data input. So I can create a form here, just like you would do with Google Forms. Add a new task, you can do a description, you can add a cover image, and I'm going to add my fields. So like start date must be here. And now I want to preview it. Maybe first share my form. Okay, so I have my form here. I can add a new task, click submit, and it will create my task. What I also can do, I can pre-fill the form. So you can send the URL to someone and pre-fill, for example, the assignee with my own name, and it will already pre-select the assignee if I think I have set my full name. Yeah, but the name must be an exact match with the name in the database, of course. So I had to set my full name here. Okay, so we covered all the view types. You can have multiple views, like here, multiple view types. And that's a very nice way to have different views on your table without setting filters all the time and have to remove them. Let's have a look. Yeah. Let's see. I can turn off, or no, that's leaving stage. I'm not going to do that. So the question in the chat is, can you make the screen a bit larger? I'm afraid I'm at the largest size possible. Let's see here. You can normally do it for yourself in Livestorm, or otherwise, I'm not sure. Am I now moving it for everyone or just for myself? So in Livestorm, if you pick the screen, you see a double arrow, and then you should be able to make the screen a little bit bigger. Yeah, okay. So next thing I want to show you is working with the formulas. So yeah, in my task table, what do I have here? I have a start date. So here my start date, and I have a deadline. And what I would like to know is the difference between my start date and deadline. So let's enter a new field. It will be a formula field. Call it days until deadline. And a formula is actually a construction of one or more functions in Baserow. So I know that there is a date function called date difference. And my date difference function needs three parameters. First of all, how I want to express the result will be a number of dates. Second, I'm going to have my start date, and I'm going to have my deadline. I want to know the difference between those two dates. And here we go. Difference between the 12th start date and the deadline 24th is I still have 12 days. Here for my custom code, starting on the 24th with the deadline of the 21st, really terrible ID. Let's move it a little bit in front. And automatically it updates and I have 37 days left. Here I have 10 days left. So that's one formula calculating the difference between two dates. Making it a little bit, just a little bit harder or less easier. It's my actual workload. So here I have the scheduled workload. For example, for Nora, she has 3 tasks, 17.8 hours, but how much of that 17.8 hours has she already completed? So let's have a look here at my tasks. I want to have all the tasks. So Nora has, let's complete this one. So 2.4 hours completed leaves her with 5.4, sorry, plus 10, it's 15.4 hours. So I want to construct a formula here that says, okay, I assigned 17.8 to her, but there are still 15 open. Let's add a formula field and say, instead of scheduled workload, I'm going to call this open workload. Okay, I already showed you a lookup field that you can create a lookup field. You can also do it in a formula. So I can say lookup from my tasks field. I want you to look up the workload. And now it's looking up the workload, one task here, here for the 3 tasks. I want to filter it. So filter is also a function. Filter this lookup field and do this by the lookup field status. And the status must be different from complete. Okay, I get an error message, and probably 9 out of 10 an error message is that the parentheses are not correct. So lookup open close, lookup open close. Yeah, I closed one too much. Okay, and now it filters. So this task was already closed. 2 out of 3 are open, 1 is closed, and both are open. So it filtered my values. And now I'm going to use the rollup function sum to make the sum out of both. And I see the workload here is 15.4 hours. Yeah. So pretty strong functions or formulas, pretty strong to say, okay, let's have the scheduled workload, open workload. Now I can also calculate the progress, so the number of work that has been done already. So work formula field. Let's call it work progress, and I'm just going to divide the open workload by the scheduled workload. And if I multiply this by 100, I should have a nice percentage of, sorry, the workload that is still open. Okay, so 13.48% has been completed. I only want to, no, I don't want to have decimals, and I want to see percentage sign after it. Okay, I have a lot of invalid number here. That's because, yeah, dividing by 0 simply causes an error. So employees without any workload will have an invalid number here. Okay, last formula I want to show you. It's playing a little bit with text. So, for example, for the email, I want to generate the email address. So what I want to do is picking the name, replacing the space with a dot, and converting everything to lowercase and at demo.com as the domain. So what I'm doing, I'm using lower, put the name in lower characters. I'm gonna replace around it and say, okay, replace a space by a dot. And finally, I'm gonna use concat and say at demo.com domain after it. And now it creates a domain, an email address. So Jane, if I would replace it by John Doe, it updates the email address immediately. So we have support for calculations, support for text, support for dates, and so on. And if you really want to start playing with the formulas, I have a template. So baserow.io/templates, the formula demo. There are 10 demos where you can use formulas. For example, generating a unique name, add leading zeros, automate task scheduling, enforcing validation, automatic status updates, and so on. So we have a lot of templates. For today, I've chosen to start from scratch and build something, but I could have easily said, okay, let's start from a template. We even have a nice task management template. So where I have a lot of predefined tasks and so on, assigned to projects, assigned to staff members. So yeah, actually, I think we have over 100 templates, all in certain categories. So for example, if you're in marketing, advertising campaigns, campaign management, we have one with objectives, activities, UTM tracking, and so on. So feel free to have a look at the library. Okay, I would like to go to user management because Baserow is a collaborative database platform, which means you're not on your own, you work together with others. And I already have shown the personal view here for the tasks. Um, and let me introduce you to the second member in my workspace. Besides myself, there is Demo. I'm the admin. Demo is an editor, which means he can edit data, but he cannot modify the structure of my database. And as an admin, I have access to the admin tools. I have access to my users, and I can impersonate Demo. So let's impersonate it. That's not the intention. Um, Everything works fine until you go live for a demo. Okay, let's give it a second try. So for my users, I want to impersonate my demo user. Okay, here we go. So my demo user has access to the task management database, to the tasks, um, where he can edit the data, but yeah, he's not able to um, add new fields or remove fields. He can add new views. So you see, he only see the collaborative view, not the personal view. He can add a new view, but it's only a personal view. So he cannot create collaborative views. And I can restrict the access for the account um, on table level. So I can say, for example, the staff table, let's manage members. Let's select members and I can say demo, okay, sorry, you only have view access to my staff table. And if I check it again, you will notice that he cannot change information about my staff members. So still has access to the table, but it's not possible to edit anything. So you can offer permissions to all your users. What I also can do is tagging someone. So if I want to discuss a task with demo, I can simply say, hey, demo, please review this. And demo can tag me and say, okay, I've done it. And actually, we can have an entire chat conversation about this record. And I can also track the entire history. So this is the history of the record. I created it at 4:07 p.m. I updated the record. I changed the assign new ones. I reassigned it. I changed the deadline. So everything that's done is tracked here in the record history. Just like in the audit log. So the audit log is only for the admin. You can see everything that has been done today by, yeah, mostly me. or my demo account. So every action I take, making a comment, changing the role, adding a field, creating a new view, it's all in the audit log. Okay, one more thing I want to show you in the database. It's, well, we're living in the age of AI. AI is everywhere. So we also have an AI field. Compared to other products, we are model agnostic. So here in the settings, we have OpenAI that's enabled. But if you want to work with Anthropic, Mistral, or Llama, or Open Router, well, it feels free to set for Llama your host, enable models, just like I did for OpenAI. And in my task table, I'm going to create an AI field. So it's a field type that you can use. I'm going to say classify. I have two models, O3 Mini and GPT 4.1. My output, instead of plain text, I wanted to make a choice. Either my task is urgent or my task is not urgent. So pretty simple, pick one. And my prompt is decide for the task, my task name, with a workload of that many hours and the deadline within days until deadline, assigned to an employee with a workload of, I don't have the workload yet here. Let's create a field for now, but first I want to add a field here, a rollup field that shows the open workload for an assignee, so that I have access to the number of hours they need to work. So I can embed it here with rollup hours. Okay, I think I have all the information. So let's generate. Nora has a lot of work to do. Let's have a look here. 12 days until the deadline. Let's make it a little bit tighter, starting yesterday for today. If I generate this, it should definitely say that it's very urgent. Yeah. For this one, it's next year. It's already in progress. It should definitely be not urgent. So it's really a very simplistic demo showing how you can use AI. But based on your prompt, using data from your table, you can classify tasks either as urgent or not urgent. Another use of this field is when you collect customer feedback, for example, or you have a survey with open questions. You can pick the answer of the open question and you can use AI to say, hey, pick a decision here and classify it either as positive or negative. If it's negative, what are the learning points from it? That's something you can do with the AI field. Other things I want to show you is besides creating a database, you can also create an application. So if I want to have a web interface on top of my database, because my users don't work in the database, or I have external users that are not member of my database because I don't want to give them access to all the data, only a small portion of the data, I can do an application. So applications have pages instead of tables. I have a home page. I will remove examples and creating a task details page. And with the task detail page, I will pass the task ID as a parameter. And on this page, I'm going to show one specific task. In my home page, I'm going to show an overview of all my tasks. And to show data, I'm going to create a data source from my database. I pick my task table. I can set filters and so on, but I'm not going to do this today. I'm going to pick a table and I am going to show all my tasks here. And my name will be a link. Still want to show the name, but I'm going to link to my task details and I want to show the ID. Sorry, I'm passing the ID. And here in my task details, I create a data source for a single row to my task table and I refer to the ID. And now I simply gonna add a header element and say, hey, show me the name. So running this in preview mode, I click on one and I go to the detail page. I click on another one, I go to the detail page for that record. So yeah, that's really built in 1 minute. Again, check the templates. We have a lot of nice templates. For example, we released one last week for supply chain and procurement management. So let me quickly install this template. Okay, here we go. So I have a database with all kinds of information about my suppliers, about inventory management, and I have an application here that I want to publish. So in the settings, I want to publish to the following domain. Probably the domain already exists. Yeah, okay, no problem. I'm publishing the wrong application. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, that's the correct one. So I need to authenticate. I sign in, and here I have all the information about suppliers. Inventory management, I can add a new consumption. So I select the product, hand sanitizer, for example, date of today, 2 bottles, optional note, demo. And this record is now added to my database. I also have purchase requests, so I can click on a purchase request. I can update the status saying, okay, it's approved, and then it goes back to my main page. I have an overview of all my products and services. I can go to my detail page, yeah, at purchase request, doing a review of my suppliers, assessing the suppliers, and so on. So you can really build a entire website on top of your application. Sorry, on top of your database. Another part we're having is the dashboarding. So dashboarding can have summary fields and charts. For example, a summary field, number of open tasks. I'm going to my task table, open task view. I want to count the name. And I see I have 4 open tasks. If I want to show a donut chart, I can say, okay, for my tasks, all tasks, I want to have my status field. Do I have a status field here? Yeah, if I select the count, I want to have my status field and I want to group it by status. So I see, okay, I have 2 complete, 3 to-dos, and 1 that's in progress. So with the dashboard, you can, yep, you can have some summary fields and charts on top of your database to present your data. Okay. Yeah, some final small things I want to mention. That's exporting data, so or integrations with other platforms. So for example, my tasks, if I want to export it, I can pick a view, click export view, and for example, I can export it to an Excel document. So I create the document and I download it. I have all my data now in an Excel document. I can also add webhooks. So if I want to integrate with other automations, I can create a webhook here and say, okay, to post to this endpoint every time a record is created or updated. If you say updated, is the workload updated or the name or the status? So you can check whatever you want here. And the entire tool is built API first. So here for task management, that's the database I created today. It automatically comes with an API. If I view the API docs, I want to get all my tasks, for example. Well, I just have to make a call to this endpoint with this header information, and I will get this response. So if you're using some integration tool or you're using other platforms, Baserow is built API first. It's really easy to integrate with. Okay, so that was my 101 demo on Baserow. If you want to continue, some things that I can recommend is definitely the Baserow Academy. So academy.baserow.io. We have three courses, the fundamentals, advanced and expert course, and you get a certificate if you complete a course. So it really covers all the Baserow topics. Also, API documentation, we have it right here. I mentioned that you have an API with the database you create, but yeah, actually you can create tables, you can create entire databases, everything is an API endpoint. So you can do really everything from the API. We also have the community. If you're stuck, if you have questions, if you build something and you want to show it, welcome to the community board. We have our knowledge base templates. Let's have a look at the templates page, baserow.io/templates. I already said we have like 100 of them in all kind of categories. You can check the most popular ones. For example, ESG management, Gemba walks for manufacturing. Most are a database plus application, and they offer you a great starting point. Also tutorials, and we have some tutorial videos on the YouTube channel. And if it's really for a big project, we also offer consultation services. So this concludes the 101 webinar. If there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for attending the webinar. Hope you learned some basics about Baserow and you're really motivated to get started with the tool. Okay, thank you for attending. See you.